In this video, we will finalize our user controller, and we will also make some changes into a service layer class so that we can run this example and see how it all works. So in our user controller, which I have opened right now on my screen, we have this method create user, which handles HTTP post request when we want to create a new user. And we started using a new model mapper instead of beanUtil class. And for this feature to work properly, I will need to continue using model mapper class in other places. Like for example, here below, we use beanUtils to copy properties from a source to target object. So I will not use it anymore. I will use model mapper instead. I will delete this line and I will now use model mapper to map information from source object, which is in my case created user, to a destination object, which in my case is going to be return value. So all I need to do here is to provide the data type of the return value. So that's going to be user rest class. And the returned value is going to be assigned to our variable here that we have initialized to an empty object. Okay, so I think we are done here with the create user method. Let's now go into a service layer class and open the create user method. Okay, so in this method we have beanUtil copy properties. So I will have to comment this out and I will use mapper. I will go to user controller and copy the model mapper and paste it here. So now I'll use this model mapper to copy properties from user data transfer object, which is passed to us as a method argument, into user entity, which is currently empty. So I'll do map, and the source object is user, and the destination data type is the user entity, and the return value will be assigned to a user entity like this. So we don't really need to initialize it here. Let me copy and paste it here like this. So this line is fixed. Now we're generating public ID for a user. We're setting user ID, setting the password, and then we're saving this information, and then we use beanUtil again. So I'll copy this one and I'll paste our line here. So now we need to map information from stored user details into a return value, which is user DTO like this. And the resulting object will need to be assigned to a return value. So I will copy this and paste it here, and I'll delete this line like this. Okay, so we do not use beanUtils anymore, and the only place that we will need to improve is here. We are creating user entity and it will have list of addresses, but the address object does not have a public address ID yet. So what we will need to do is we will need to loop through the list of addresses which is stored in user DTO, and we will need to generate address ID for each of address objects and put it back into user DTO. So let's do that. So right before I map information from user DTO into user entity here, I will loop through the list of addresses that I have in user DTO object, and I will use for loop for that. So that will be a for loop, and now for each iteration I can get an address DTO record by doing this. Now let me import address DTO. Is it capital DTO? Let me look it up. Yeah, capital DTO. Let's import it. And now for each address I can set user details, which is in our case user. And now for each address, I can set the public address ID by using the utility class that we have. And this time I will call generate address ID, and the length will be 30 as well. And now when I have this address object updated, I will set it back to user DTO. And I can do it by doing user get addresses set. Index will be I and the element will be address like this. I can set it back. Okay, now we have user DTO object that contains list of addresses, and each address now contains user details, and each address now contains public alphanumeric address ID, which is a 30 characters long. I think we can now run this application and see how it works, and if there is an issue, we will come back and fix it here.